I'm a little more tolerant of because I think he'll be playing, in the next week or so. He'll be okay.
All I'll say about Caleb Farley is Chris Sanders had a meltdown at the draft, and right now Chris looks,
No, I'm not. Way too early to make a judgment there. But what the hell were they getting with Dupree? Yeah, really. I'm glad that he's all excited, but they basically, threw him a cookie last week. And dressed him so he could get his bonus of $15,000. I can sleep at night knowing that Bud Dupree got his $15,000, show up for the game bonus. But you've got that and Julio Jones. What is going on with Julio Jones?
Something's going on.
It's like they don't want to admit that Julio Jones came here as damaged goods. They don't want to admit that he's brittle, that this could be the last year of his career. If you watch the NFL long enough and you're seeing what's happening with Julio Jones, this smells a lot like a walk-off year, which would not be good given what the Titans gave up for him. Like I said, Terry Fontenot, the GM of the Falcons, his core muscles must be hurting because he's laughing so much at the way he absolutely fleeced the Titans on the Julio Jones deal.
Yeah, but I want to talk about that Dupree thing because we talked about this, Jared, earlier in the season that we were concerned because he got hurt so late in the season.
Sure.
If he would have got hurt like the second game of the year, then I can understand because he has a lot of time to recoup. But when you're late in the season, that's hard to come back from a knee injury, and you just can't do it physically, especially with his position, because he has to start and stop and be physical. And
I just wish they'd be honest with us about it. Like, if they had signed
exactly.
up for all that money, just say, hey, it's going to take – like they did this with Conklin a couple years ago. Conklin tore his ACL in the divisional playoff at New England, and he didn't come back until October, and we all got it. We weren't Simmons. We weren't sitting there with Simmons saying, oh, Lord, when is Simmons going to play? But because Vrabel won't tell anybody the truth because he thinks he's got to be,
That's what bothers me.
Yeah, exactly. The unnecessary drama created with Julio Jones is ridiculous. You're right.
Something's not
they
right
should have
about
put him
that.
on early season IR and just said, listen, unfortunately, he's got a hammy situation because this week to week, we didn't want him in there digging out blockers late in the game. And
okay, timeout.
It reeks of the dog ate my homework.
Something. Listen, and I'm not trying to be, sad Susie, if that makes sense. But something doesn't sit right with me with the Julio Jones, and I'm not trying to make it a big thing because he grabbed his helmet and he was getting ready to go back in the game, and I think somebody whispered to him like, you need to sit on the sidelines and watch his body language, watch his demeanor, because there was something that was said that he wasn't going in the game. I think it was because, and I'm not saying that Vrabel said this or the offensive coordinator said this or the receiver coach said this, but somebody told him that if you don't do your job, you're getting out of here. Now we're going to say it's an injury. Something doesn't add up with that. That's just my opinion. I may be wrong, but that situation could blow up immediately.
Also, think about this. Going back to everything that you're bringing up, and I was monitoring it too, just like you were, and just like, if Vrabel goes to the podium Sunday after the game, what happened to Julio? Yeah, he chased down that guy on the interception and made the tackle, and his hamstring's a little tight, so I just decided we didn't want to risk Julio going out there and injuring the hamstring more. Done. Like, there's no follow-up to that, is there? There's no, is Vrabel telling the truth? Is Vrabel not? When you get up there and say, he's a little tight, we had to manage some things, and I wanted guys that could dig out safeties. Now it's like, well, what did you just say right there? So I'm with you, and I'll say this about Julio. Mark's onto something. There was no other team in the league that was going to pay full price for Julio Jones. That is high draft choice and take all the money. I think there were teams that would have paid a high draft choice if you took the money, and I think there would have been teams that were going to pay a low draft choice but would have taken on the money. But I don't think there's any team in the league other than you that was going to do both. And then you did both, which you shouldn't have done, which I said at the time, I'm like, this is too much. But there were issues with Julio. He's old. He's injured. There are rumblings and grumblings from people I trust in Atlanta that said that, hey, there was a gadget play designed for Julio. The play was named after Julio, and he ran off the field when it was called. And those issues are all something that stay in the back of our minds. And if Vrabel thinks that he can act a certain way at the press conference to get through to Julio, it's not going to work because Vrabel has no leverage here because they gave Julio all the money.
Yeah, and we talked about this, Jared, earlier when they were talking about signing him. These are the things that we were concerned.
Sure.
And now it's starting to come to fruition, and now it's trying to bubble up to the surface. And I think what Mike Vrabel's doing, I'm not saying he's telling a story or telling a fib. I just think he's trying to keep it from really blowing up. Because when it starts blowing up, it messes the chemistry of the team. So I think that he's, as a coach, you got to say the right things, but yes, you got to tell the truth. But when you start pointing fingers and you start pointing out a certain guy, and Julio can't handle that, he's going to start acting like Carl Pickens, kind of what we talked about, before the show. So you just don't want that to happen as a head coach.
Well, I think Vrabel's greatest strength is managing his roster and managing the season.
Right, true.
You can say whatever you want about him. I don't always agree how, from a PR situation, they handle everything exactly right. But he's really good at navigating his way, through 16 or 17 games. And he's gonna do his best. Pouring outside. He's gonna do his best to put Julio in the best possible situations so he can go out there and be productive. But so far, this season has been sort of a head scratcher because when he's been out there, he has had one good game.
Sure, no, he's a good player.
Absolutely,
for sure.
We know that he has maybe lost some speed, but he can still make the combat catches. Mm-hmm. He's still a guy, that's valuable out there, but you got to get him out there.
We'll take a look at the 4 downs, the big 4 topics. We'll move the chains with TriStar Moving. We'll do that next live from the Corner Pub in Brentwood. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. We are live on the pregame show at Corner Pub in Brentwood. Once again, Titans and Jets. It's time now to move the chains with our friends at TriStar Moving. Moving the Chains is brought to you by TriStar Moving, TriStar Movers with 5-star service. We start with First Down.
First down.
There was once upon a time I was in the 5th grade, Mark Howard, and Kevin Dyson tore his ACL.
Yeah.
Yancey Thigpen got hurt for the umpteenth time. Carl Pickens was a free agent signing who was ineffective, and it felt like the Titans had no wide receivers, and nobody knew. And then all of a sudden, Derek Mason and Chris Sanders became the 2 best receivers on the team on what I consider to be the best Titan team ever.
I love you, man.
You're welcome. By the way, 6 catches over 30 yards for Chris Sanders in 2000.
Dang.
This year, A.J. Brown out this week. Julio Jones out this week. So get yourself a nice helping of Nick Westbrook-Akina and Cam Batson and Chester Rogers. And I get it, it's the Jets. But what's going on at wide receiver?
By the way, you were in 5th grade. I was on my honeymoon in Hawaii watching, the lower third of the screen on ESPN, seeing my guy Dice tear his knee up. I remember that pretty vividly. This year for the Titans, you got Josh Reynolds, Chester Rogers, Cam Batson, Nick Westbrook-Ikea, and even Racey McMath.
What? Let's go.
Who looks like he should be like one of those, cartoon characters in an algebra book. Hey, it's Racey McMath helping you with your quadratic equations. But anyway, that's what it's going to be today. Yeah. It's going to be, at least within the NFL, guys who sound like they're coming out of the witness protection program to get thrown to by Ryan Tannehill. I thought Tannehill last week sort of threw in bad luck. He did throw one really bad interception. But I thought, I think a big part of the Titans' success the last couple of weeks has been Tannehill's aggressiveness throwing the ball downfield. And they're going to need that today. The Jets' defensive line, led by Quinnen Williams, there are no pushovers there. The Jets might be bad record-wise, but every one of their games is low-scoring and ugly, and they're not an easy team to run against.
Just looking at the wide receiver, it's kind of like a quote I say, preparation meets opportunity. This is a great opportunity for Chester Rogers, Johnson, Westbrook, and Batson to really show what they can do. The one guy that I really
Reynolds out.
That's what I was just about to say. I know you don't like
Is Marcus Johnson playing today?
Yeah, he's playing.
Yeah, he might be. Yeah.
Yeah, but just kind of going back to what I'm saying. I really want to see Reynolds, do what we brought him here to do, because everybody was talking about, he can help, A.J. Brown and all these things. I want to see if he's been hurt in camp. He really hasn't done anything in the preseason. Now it's the opportunity for you to go out there and show that you are here to make some plays. So, even though, everybody doesn't know these wide receivers like Westbrook and Chester and Johnson and Batson, these guys can still play football. These are not just receivers you just got off the street and said, okay, you go run a slant route or run a go route. These guys are seasoned. These guys can run routes. These guys can make plays. So even though we don't have our top dogs with A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, this is a great opportunity for these guys to go out and showcase what they can do.
Plus, I feel a little bit better this week about the offensive line. Lewan and Saffold are another week along in terms of their health. And hopefully they can protect Tannehill sufficiently to allow him to do that. But I feel a lot better about the Titans' offensive line this week than I have any week this season.
That takes us to second down.
Second down.
Derrick Henry is on pace for 2,000 yards exactly over a 17-game season. Another 100-yard game in the books for Derrick Henry. Did you see this stat, guys? That over the last 25 games, Derrick Henry has 3,276 rushing yards. The most ever in NFL history over any 25-game span, beating Barry Sanders, who has, I think, 3,190 yards over a 25-game span. Nobody has done what Derrick Henry's doing, and without those wide receivers in there, I'm going to guess, Chris, we're going to see a lot of Derrick Henry today.
Man, absolutely. Last week he was 28 and he had 113 yards, but this is what I love that he's doing. I know everybody's talking about him catching the football and catching the swing pass and making plays. But I just love his vision. I mean, the first time he came into the NFL, everybody's talking about he didn't have good vision. He was a straight line guy. But, man, he's seeing the field. He's seeing the front. He's getting to the second level, and he's punishing the secondary. So just watching him, what he's doing, I think, in my opinion, he's the best back in the league. And the reason why I say he's the best back in the league is because he's a game changer. He takes over the game. He makes plays. He punishes. And he's always falling forward, and he's standing in front of the chain. So, even though, everybody's saying, that he can't catch the ball down the field, that means absolutely nothing. But the one thing I love that this cat is doing is he's taking over the game, and that's why he's the best back in the league.
Well, I think it's important for the Titans to play from ahead today. And I also think you get a little concerned wondering what Derrick Henry's going to be like, every week. I just think as few carries as possible. It's going to be interesting to see how they try to maintain him. Because I think the aim today, rather than go in and try to shorten the game, go in there and make the Jets play from behind. Yeah. If you keep the Jets close and allow their young quarterback to get any confidence at all, then you could be in trouble. Then you get into one of those situations. But it's going to be interesting to me to see how much Todd Downing again goes to play action. The Titans should be able to take advantage of the Jets secondary. Their pass rush is middling. They're pretty good against the run, and that's why I say you might be seeing Tannehill throw the ball a lot more early than you thought.
I mean, I just think with Henry, we just got to make sure we have one of those 12 or 13 play drives. I mean, take the life out of the Jets. So, and I know you hate to say this. I know you guys are going to laugh. But we got to get the coin toss. We get the coin toss. We take the ball. We get 12 or 13 play drive. And take the life out of that stadium, take the life out of that defense, take the life out of that offense. Because the thing about it is, if we go and we have a 3-and-out and Tannehill fumbles and, drop passes, then all of a sudden Zach Wilson gets hot for the first game, then now you're in the battle of your life. And you don't want to do that against a team that's licking their wounds. You don't want to do that against a team to where their back is against the wall. Because you better understand something. You said this earlier in the week, and we've been saying it. We've been preaching this all week, that it's still an NFL football team, and this team wants to win. And you better believe that Corey Davis circled this game to say, you know what? You guys didn't sign me, and I'm going to come out here and try to run through y'all's face.
They should have success. Even though the Jets are decent against the run, the Titans should have a pretty good day on the ground against the Jets. And just take care of these guys. Are we going to be sweating this one out in the fourth quarter? I wouldn't be surprised.
Mark, your thoughts on the coin toss?
I think it's a tragedy that Chris's nurse didn't show up with him today. he keeps uttering the same thing every week
this guy,
about the damn coin toss.
Oh, my God.
That takes us to third down.
Third down.
Zach Wilson is a rookie, and Zach Wilson has stunk in 3 games as the quarterback of the Jets. Now, Mark, you know this. It's New York, so they may be ready to dump him after 4 games, knowing how they treat people in New York. By the way, you see Sam Darnold doesn't look so bad in Carolina. What do we think of the rookie quarterback, Zach Wilson? There were a lot of people who said that they would go with Wilson over Lawrence in the NFL draft. Some people absolutely loved him. The Jets obviously moved on from Darnold in order to get him. San Francisco would have killed for the opportunity to get him. What do we think of Wilson today and what he could do with that talent against the Titans?
Well, he's got a terrible supporting cast. Let's do that for starters. Listen, a Titans fan's worst nightmare today would be not only to lose to the Jets, but for Zach Wilson to have his first great game thrown to Corey Davis. I mean, that would just be galling. But, I mean, just slow your roll on Zach Wilson, for God's sakes. I mean, he's 3 games into a career. And, yeah, typically Jets fans are whining about this. But to me, Zach Wilson is a victim of the Jets organization unable to bring in foundational players to build a core, to add this guy to, which is why Trevor Lawrence is going to be good a lot sooner than Wilson is, because I think they're going to give him a better supporting cast in Jacksonville. But, you had guys, and I trust their judgment. Chris Sims is a pretty smart guy when it comes to evaluating quarterbacks, believe it or not. And he was one who felt like Wilson was actually better than Trevor Lawrence. But I am not going to make a summary judgment on a young quarterback after 3 games. I think it's ridiculous. And I think we've seen with Sam Darnold that if you put, a young quarterback who's had a lot of adversity, in the right system, he can actually have some success. And you're seeing that in Carolina. So the Jets have to build around Wilson and hopefully not have his confidence totally drained from him, as he works his way through what has so far been a tough rookie season.
Hey, Jared, you ever watch the Oprah Winfrey Show?
No.
Okay, Mark, you ever watch it? Okay, this is what you do.
Little trivia, Chris.
Okay, I'm gonna give you when you watch the Oprah Winfrey Show, she's always giving out stuff. She's like, you get one, you get one. That's exactly what Zach Wilson is doing with interceptions. He is throwing out interceptions left and right.
He's handing out like Halloween candy.
Absolutely. I mean, the Broncos, he had 2 interceptions. The Patriots, he had 4 interceptions. Against the Panthers, he had 1. So he's constantly turning the football.
Well, Bill Belichick looks at rookie quarterbacks like a hot meal. So
yeah, but he just looks so uncomfortable in the pocket. And I'm not just saying it's just all him, because I agree with you. It's a supporting cast. But also it's the offensive line. The offensive line looks atrocious. They're giving up 38.5% of pressure. So that just tells you that he's consistently getting pressured. He's consistently uncomfortable in the pocket. So as a young quarterback, you are definitely going to make mistakes. But I don't want to be like this game. Okay, all of a sudden he starts to get confidence. But by 1 pass, 2 passes, 3 passes, and all of a sudden he rips our secondary up. That's what I'm kind of concerned about.
Time now for 4th down.
4th down.
4th down is always reserved for special teams. Johnny Townsend will be punting for the Tennessee Titans this week. And we can laugh about punter all we want. Remember what happened last time the Titans changed the punter?
What happened?
Trevor Daniel shanked it. Trevor Daniel got 1 blocked, and the Titans lost to the Colts last year.
Don't say that.
And Floyd was like, you never change the punter for that reason. Brett Kern hurt with a sore groin.
the double thud.
So here comes Johnny Townsend. Chris Sanders,
Yeah.
how worried are we about another change in the kicking
This is
game?
what you do, just consistently getting first downs. If you get first downs, you don't have to use the punter. I mean, it's that simple. I mean, yeah, we're going to punt a couple of times, but here's the deal. It's not just about the punter. It's about what the guys are doing up front. Make sure you put them in protection to where it doesn't get blocked. So even though, you're kind of nervous about what he can do, we just still got to be faithful in the guys that are in front of him, because it's not just about him.
Wasn't Johnny Townsend with the Who? Oh, that's Pete Townsend. No. You hate it. I mean, you do. And you're right, Jared. This is the kind of situation where a mistake on special teams in a relatively close game could turn it against the Titans. You're right. I hope that I don't notice Johnny Townsend a whole lot today, and he can get in and out of here. But it's, the Titans, for the most part, have not been touched by injuries like this since Vrabel's gotten here. And even though, with the exception of Weaver, they haven't had a lot. They're not losing starters for the season.
Sure.
But it's a week-to-week sort of aggravating thing where the Titans are definitely, reaching into their skimpy depth to try to replace guys. Brett Kern is a big part of this team in terms of dictating field position and everything else. So hopefully Townsend at least can be adequate. Again, we won't be talking about it next week as far as one of the factors.
Movie The Change, presented by TriStar Moving. TriStar Movers with 5-star service. My official movers, TriStar Moving. Coming up next, we'll go inside the playbook on offense. What does Todd Downing need to draw up for the Titans against the Jets? We'll do that live from the Corner Pub in Brentwood. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Inside the Playbook is presented by E2 Roofing. Trust the roofers with integrity. E2 Roofing, a veteran-owned and operated local Nashville roofer. Chris Sanders.
Yes, sir.
No A.J. Brown, no Julio Jones. Anthony Ferkser, though, will make his return to the lineup for the Titans on offense. And the Jets' defense, Vrabel talked about it. Marcus talked about it today on the pregame show. Their front seven, not bad, though they did lose Marcus May, who is their star defensive safety. He will be out today. So what is the game plan on offense against the Jets?
I think looking at the one-on-one battles, you got West on the wide receiver side, you got Westbrook, Rogers, Reynolds going against Hall, Eccles, and Colbert. And if you look at their secondary is consistently getting beat in big plays.
I don't know a single guy you talked about on their team.
I know, but I kind of watch a little film there, buddy.
No, I'm just saying. I have no idea who they are. That's why.
Yeah, I'm just messing.
Are they even NFL players?
Yeah, I mean they are. They're okay, but I think that these guys that we have on our side with Westbrook, Rogers, and Reynolds, and maybe Johnson, I think they can take advantage of the one-on-one matchups on the outside, because you better believe that the Jets are going to load the box and try to stop the run. So on the outside of the perimeter, those guys have the depth to make plays. Then the second thing that I really want to look at is the domination of the O-line. The O-line with Lawan, Saffold, Jones, and Quisenberry going against Quentin Williams and Myers and Quincy Williams. That's going to be the key by them controlling the line of scrimmage. And if the Tennessee Titans can control the line of scrimmage, then they're going to dictate the game and come out with a victory.
Yeah, I actually agree with Chris, and I think they can do it. And then you get to the second level, and the linebackers. We know about C.J. Mosley, but Quincy Williams and Jamie and Sherwood are undersized guys that aren't going to win a lot of one-on-one battles against Derrick Henry if he gets to the second level. So Henry could have a big day today. I know a lot of people think he's going to go under 100 yards, and I don't necessarily see that. But even without the two big wide receivers on offense, I think the Titans should be fine.
Yep.
I think play action will definitely be Tannehill's friend. And I thought last week, he showed the ability to be successful with receivers other than A.J. Brown and Julio Jones. He did what he had to do, and that's one thing I like about Tannehill. He's very sort of democratic when it comes to his receivers. He will spread it around as long as those guys get open, and this is going to be an opportunity, for some of their other receivers to get out there and get some targets.
Just listening to what Mike Vrabel and that whole coaching staff has been talking about, even when somebody gets hurt, they keep saying next man up. I mean, that's the mentality that they're having. And if you look at that wide receiver situation with A.J. Brown out and Julio Jones out, those guys have to step up. But the one that I'm intrigued of seeing that we've been talking about the whole season is Reynolds. I want to see if Reynolds is explosive. I want to see if Reynolds can make the big play. I want to see can he do what he did when he was with the L.A. Rams. Their verdict is still out on what this guy can do.
Yeah, I think you're leaving the porch light on for Amelia Earhart if you're waiting for Josh Reynolds.
Chris is the biggest Josh Reynolds hater, though.
No, I don't.
There is.
No, I mean, just studying receivers, and I'm being respectful when I say this. I'm talking about the position, not the player. But just watching, he just doesn't scare me as an explosive wide receiver. I watch how he gets out of his cuts. I watch chest over the knees. I watch how he gets off the line of scrimmage. Yeah, he can catch a pass over the middle, but I want to see separation.
Well, I think it's funny. If you'd have told John Robinson that he was going to get Chester Rogers and Marcus Johnson, and they were going to play the way that they did in the preseason, he would have said, we don't need Josh Reynolds.
Yeah. But you know why?
But, whatever the case.
But you know why? It's because those two guys have been practicing. Reynolds hasn't been practicing. So those other guys are getting so much rep and getting a lot of experience in learning the offense. You got Reynolds that came from the L.A. Rams, who has been sitting on the sidelines from day one. And in the preseason, he had 0 catches, 0 yards, and 0 touchdowns. So the verdict is still out on what he can do for this Tennessee Titans team.
Does Ryan Tannehill's turnovers concern either of you? Because 5 turnovers in 3 games, and I just said it all week, which is there's a certain way you win with Ryan Tannehill, and turning the football over is not something that – you want to win turning the football over with Jay Cutler, you can do that. You want to win turning the football over with Brett Favre, you can do that. You can't do that with Ryan Tannehill. And some of these turnovers have been just careless. What is your concern level, Mark Howard?
I will admit that he's been a little more careless this year than he has previously. He's trying to take more chances. He's trying to be more aggressive. And sometimes there's a price to be paid. But I like the fact that he stayed aggressive. I think that the Titans reaped those benefits last week. But I agree with you. He has thrown some bad picks. I'm not going to alibi for him. a couple of times. That they weren't his fault, but it's a long season. He hasn't gotten off to the greatest of starts. But the thing I like about Tannehill is that even if he makes a couple of bad throws through the course of a game, he seems to be able to snap and clear, turn the page, use whatever analogy you want, and just forget them and still play well at the end. And I think that's more important. It has not affected his confidence.
I know everybody's concerned about the interceptions, but I'm concerned about the fumbles. I mean,
and he has fumbled.
Oh my gosh!
Before this year, he has been a fumbler.
And everybody said that was the knock on him in Miami is when he gets hit, he starts to fumble, but it's fumbling at the wrong time. I'm not saying there's a right time to fumble, but when you're on your minus 20 and you're fumbling, you're giving the other team a short field. So if you give a team a short field and you're fumbling, those are the things that I'm kind of concerned about.
See, I'm less blameful when it comes to that because most of the fumbles this year have been blindside hits. I don't know how you can blame him when he doesn't see somebody coming and he gets hit from behind and maybe he should take care of the football maybe a little bit better.
Here's what Tannehill does that bothers me. Tannehill panics when he's under pressure. And that's something that Zach Wilson, if he were to do that this week, fine. But you look at that Tannehill interception that he threw over the middle of the field that let the Colts back in the game on Sunday, and he panicked because the receivers, McNichols and Tommy Hudson ran to the wrong spot. And so Tannehill's sitting there, and he goes, full-on standing up at this point because he doesn't know what to do. He cocks the football one time, pump fakes because he's trying to throw it, and he's like, wait, I don't see anybody there. Then he throws it anyways. Like, dude, you are 10 years in the NFL. Throw the football away.
Well, and to that point, I think we need to be mindful that the Titans were lucky to win last week. That if the Colts could have done anything but self-destruct inside the 10-yard line, we'd be having a different conversation. I mean, they could have easily lost that game last week. So, even though they won, let's not, sit here and delude ourselves into thinking that the Titans are playing great. They're winning. But a lot of times they're winning in spite of themselves, or they're winning because the other team has more issues than they have. Well, and that might be the case this week.
And I go back to Tannehill taking care of the football under duress. I mean, you go back to that first week when he fumbled the ball with Chandler Jones coming right at him on a naked boot, and he's trying, he sees Chandler Jones, and instead of just tucking it in and taking the sack, he's trying to take it out to throw it somewhere, and Chandler Jones just knocks it out of his hands, and it's Arizona's ball at the 1-yard line. Last week he had a similar play that ended up not being a problem. And this was the thing I kept saying on Monday, and the fans were like, who cares, whatever. He was trying to avoid taking a sack, so he just lofts the ball into the middle of the field, and it falls at Jeremy McNichols' feet. And it's like, dude, you can't throw that ball in the NFL because if you do this week and that C.J. Mosley standing there, he's going to catch that and probably run it into the end zone for a touchdown. And now, just like last week with that Colts team, a team that is not supposed to be in the game with you is in the game with you, and that's exactly how the Jets win today. If the Jets do, in fact, win or make this a game, is by you doing something stupid that lets them in it.
And a memo, by the way, to Jeremy McNichols. Block somebody. That's why you're on the roster.
Coming up next, we'll flip to the other side. Defense. Defense is actually kind of surprised so far through 3 weeks. What do we think about the Titans' defense against the Jets? We'll do that next. We're live from the Corner Pub in Brentwood. It is the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Inside the defensive playbook, again presented by E2 Roofing. Trust the roofers with integrity. E2 Roofing, a veteran-owned and operated local Nashville roofer. Defense, Mark Howard, has actually been pretty impressive. 15th in points, 15th in total yards. So, an average defense, which is all we asked for this offseason, is an average defense that could get off the field on third down. They've played 3 decent NFL starting quarterbacks in the first 3 weeks. They now get a rookie in Zach Wilson. How do we feel about the defense?
Well, I feel good about the defense because I love the way Danico Autry and Jeffrey Simmons are playing. And if you control the interior line, defensively, you can make so many things happen. You could bring my Nana off the edge if you're dominating with those 2 guys. And look who's leading the Titans in sacks. It's the street free agent. Mm-hmm. So go figure that. But yeah, I agree with you, Jared. I mean, they're doing a better job of getting off the field. That should be able to happen this week. The thing with the Jets is they don't exactly move the chains. So I like the defense today. I think the Titans, pressure-wise, have a chance to have a 5-sack day or maybe even better. So I think this is set up for their success.
Just looking at last year, where did the Tennessee Titans really struggle at last year? I know they struggled with getting pressure to quarterback, but they struggled in the back end. And now you got a corner that's playing, I think, one of the best in the league, and that's Fulton. Because last year they gave up 36 touchdowns. Now he's covering their top wide receivers. He kind of basically shut down Metcalf a couple of weeks ago. And against Indy, he went against Pittman. They only had about 6 or 7 catches, but didn't get over the 100-yard mark. So just watching the secondary play and watching how Fulton is playing, he's playing at the top level. So if they keep doing that and the Tennessee Titans keep putting pressure on the quarterback, I think the Tennessee Titans can be successful. And then you look at some of the unsung heroes that we didn't really talk about at the beginning of the season that we actually wanted to get rid of. Landry last week had 12 pressures.
Hey, Landry's playing really
He is playing crazy. And then you got Ola, how do you pronounce his dog? Denny, who had 5 or 6 QB hits. These are guys that we didn't talk about at the beginning of the season. Now we're talking about them because now they're playing at a totally different level on guys we were depending on.
And why is that, Chris?
Because he's hungry.
Because of Simmons and Autry.
Absolutely.
Because the Titans are playing much better on the D-line, and it allows this defense to get off the field.
How big of it? I mean, I don't want to say how big of an impact is Christian Fulton because we know the answer there. How surprised are you guys at how good Christian Fulton's been this year?
I'm not surprised at all. I think it's sort of a typical second-year player who they brought in knowing that it was probably going to take him a year to get his feet on the ground, and he's done an excellent. I mean, this is why they let Malcolm Butler and Adoree Jackson and guys like that walk, because they felt like, Fulton was ready, and he is. And I think eventually you'll see Molden, integrated a little bit more into that defense, and hopefully Caleb Farley before long. But, I think Fulton looks really good in his second season, and I'm not surprised at all. I loved it when they drafted him. I thought it was a good pick.
I'm surprised a little bit, just watching him play his first season. I know he was hurt a little bit, but just watching him now, he looks like a totally different person. And the reason why he looks different is he's just playing with a lot of confidence. And I think when he was doing this interview, he said the games it seems slower as opposed to being fast because he's understanding formations, he's understanding route concepts. So with him understanding that with his skill set, I just think that he's going to go to a level and going to get better and better and better each week.
Game slows down,
Absolutely.
You play faster.
Absolutely.
What do we think about Corey Davis? He is the number 1 receiver of the Jets. Corey Davis was asked about this week, were the Titans interested in offering him a contract? And he just said no. And then he said, how did he feel about it? He said he didn't like it, but then kind of kept it cordial. But the Titans, no interest in bringing Davis back. They're paying him $13 million a year, something I would never do. But they are paying him all this money. And I do wonder, the one thing I wonder about is this. Chris always talks about fast starts and winning the coin toss and why it's so important. One thing I always wonder about in a game like this is could a big play early that the defense gives up be the thing that allows the Jets, especially with the Corey Davis, if he's the one who makes it, that would allow the Jets to think, you know what, we can play with these guys?
Absolutely. And a little context with Corey Davis. and I think you got to be fair. I think John Robinson knew what it was going to cost to lock up Corey Davis, and in a year where the cap went down, you had to manage things differently. So until they got cost certainty, they didn't feel like they could go out there and invest in a receiver until they knew exactly what they were able to spend. And I just think with Corey Davis, it just wasn't going to happen in what was a really odd year. They just they had other priorities. But that doesn't surprise me that they didn't want to sign him, long term. But, make no mistake about it. Corey Davis wasn't really – it's unfair to call Corey Davis a bust.
No.
I don't think he was a bust.
I agree with Mark on that. I agree with Mark on that.
What he showed – listen.
I think Corey
Mark.
Davis – I said this week. I think Corey Davis, picking him fifth, was the single biggest mistake John Robinson has made as the general manager of the Titans.
Well, okay, he was underproductive, but to call him a bust is unfair.
Absolutely.
Because he turned out to be a good blocker. I mean, he did a lot of good things.
Yeah.
He just did not produce at the level commensurate a guy who got taken fifth overall should produce. But
well, it's like every time that people say, well, the Titans took Kevin Dyson over Randy Moss, they say that as if Kevin Dyson was a bad player. Kevin Dyson was a good player.
He sure was.
And he had some of the biggest moments in Titans history. He was a good player, and if he hadn't gotten hurt, he would have been a number one receiver in the NFL. And so people say that kind of stuff all the time. Davis was picked fifth. He was picked ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
I think with that situation is, he came into camp and he was hurt. And I'm not giving him an excuse. I'm not giving him a pass. But, he came in with ankles that were hurt. So when you come in, you have to sit out and you're not, getting a feel of the speed of the game. I think it kind of gives you a little setback. And I think that when he had that setback, he lost a little bit of confidence. But when he got his confidence back last year and almost had 1,000 yards, I agree with Mark Howard. I don't feel that he's a bust. I just think that his career started off a little slow.
He's not a number one receiver. He's a number two receiver. Mm-hmm. He's a two. He's not a one.
But he's capable of making that big play, just like what Jared was talking about, not giving up that big post or that big in route and taking it for a touchdown.
But once you know that, then you adjust your expectations. But he's definitely not a one.
In all these big games, though, over the last couple of years, and like the playoff games and stuff like that, how many catches can you remember Corey Davis making that were big catches in big games?
No doubt.
Yeah.
And that's my biggest issue.
No, you're right. And when you're a fifth overall pick, you're a headache for the other defensive coordinator in scheming, against the Titans. And I don't get that sense. Corey Davis was a guy that they needed to keep their eye on. But Corey Davis, I don't think they were worried that Corey Davis was going to beat them on a particular day. I agree with you. It's a fair criticism.
But he made some games to where some winning catches that he made. I think it was a couple of years ago when he caught the winning touchdown against Philly.
It was 4 years ago.
But even if it was 5 years ago, he still made some big catches.
I know, but if we're talking about a guy that you picked fifth overall in the draft, and you're going to 4 years ago as the one big catch that he made.
I didn't say one. He made a lot of big catches.
But not in big games, he really didn't. Like that 2017 season, or the Malarkeys last year. Mm-hmm. He had the touchdown that put him ahead on the Patriots in that playoff game. Other than that, though, he 0 catches last year at Green Bay, 0 catches in the playoffs. The one playoff touchdown I remember that mattered was the Derrick Henry pop pass against the Ravens. Mm-hmm. Corey Davis, he's an average player, and you can't draft average players fifth overall in the NFL.
It's always weird to draft a guy and judge him against his expectations. Justin McCarron's, when he was here the first time, exceeded expectations.
True.
And everybody liked him. But then he goes to the Jets, gets the big contract, and underperforms. And they kind of viewed him as kind of a bust. And then he came back here at the end of his career, and he was just nowhere near the guy we saw the first time around. So it happens.
What do you guys think about the fact that the Jets literally have no running game? And if they're going to draft a quarterback second overall, you'd like to have the second overall pick to have a little bit of a running game. And I don't even know these running backs that the Jets have.
That's why they're going to stay in zone coverage. They only need to put an extra guy in the box to stop the run. So, you really can just
Hey, wait, they have Le'Veon Bell. Oh, that's right. They don't.
He just got elevated. I think he's playing today.
I was
Off
thinking
the
about this
practice squad.
I was thinking about this with Le'Veon Bell. Le'Veon Bell loves football so much that he's willing to be on the practice squad for the Ravens and then get elevated up off of it. But 4 years ago, he wasn't willing to play for $14.7 million.
Come on, man.
Like, what? Like, this is, that's just the whole Le'Veon Bell sidebar. But it just, I am not worried about the Jets on offense, but I am worried, just like I am about the Titans on offense. I'm worried about the Titans screwing it up today. And I don't know why. Defense has been okay.
Yeah. I mean, we just can't have turnovers. And I know y'all laughing about the coin toss and starting off fast, but I'm telling you, if they get the momentum and start feeling themselves and start feeling some confidence, Corey Davis catches the touchdown. Them others, I don't know if Crowder's playing. He catches the touchdown. The running game gets going. All of a sudden, you get a little bit of confidence. You're going to be in a dogfight.
Well, and I know you guys might roll your eyes at this, but the Vegas number is 6. That's
low.
That's low. And when it's low, that means buyer beware. So if you're plunking down a few shekels on the Titans, could be a white knuckle Sunday for you.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at Mike Vrabel's key to the game. I do not think it's winning the coin toss, but we will see. Plus, who's in, who's out. Big names for both teams out. We'll get to that next. It's the pregame show live from the Corner Pub in Brentwood. It's ESPN 102.5 The Game. Time now to take a look at the inactives and Mike Vrabel's keys to the game, brought to you by Hillside Medical Clinic. They're brought to you every week by Hillside Medical Clinic. Out today for the Titans, wide receiver Julio Jones. Out for the Titans, wide receiver A.J. Brown. corner Caleb Farley, punter Brett Kern, outside linebacker Bud Dupree, offensive lineman Dylan Radens, and running back Mekhi Sargent. So let me just say this.
Wow, Dylan Radens isn't playing.
Let's take a timeout here for John Robinson's offseason. His top trade, Julio Jones, today is out. His top free agent, Bud Dupree, today is out. And his top 2 draft picks, Caleb Farley and Dylan Radens, are out. I got to say this about Robinson.
They're having breakfast today with Elijah Wilson.
Who is out today? Elijah Moore is out today for the. Are you saying Isaiah Wilson?
Isaiah Wilson, rather.
Well, he's with the Giants now.
That's
so
what I mean. He's in town.
So they can have the family reunion. I mean, at what point? Now, this is one thing that it's an old saying that I've heard. Dumb guys stay dumb, fat guys stay fat, injured guys stay injured. And the Titans keep signing and trading and drafting injured people, and it's shocking that they're hurt. Chris had a meltdown at the NFL draft with us when they picked Caleb Farley. And Caleb Farley has been hurt. And Bud Dupree is hurt. And Julio Jones is hurt. And I just wonder, at what point are the Titans going to say, you know what, maybe picking the hurt guys isn't always a good idea?
I would say, log on to prisonerofthemoment.com to get a little perspective on this.
Okay.
Jeffrey Simmons, if you remember, missed a decent chunk of his rookie year, coming back, from knee surgery, and he's faring fairly well. So.
But the one thing I hate about the Simmons thing is when people say that, Farley had a back issue, and everybody was like, well, it worked with Simmons. It's like, how many Pro Bowls has Jeffrey Simmons been to? How many All-Pros is Jeffrey Simmons?
No, but he's on the ascent.
I mean, he's a good player, and you can take good players. Willis McGahee, he blew his knee up and had a decent NFL career. You could do that, but I don't think you can get in the business of taking injured people all the time and then being shocked when they're injured for you.
I just think the one that's just still mind-boggling to me is Farley. I mean, when you get a guy that draft pick that high, you expect for him to come in and be an impact player right away. But when you have a guy that's injured and you're unsure, I just think that just scratched my head because, look at the injury that he had. It's not just a knee or ankle; it's a back. A back can end your career because that's actually what happened to me.
Well, now it's his shoulder.
Now it's his shoulder, but still, he's still not on the field, and that's what we're missing.
Big difference. It's not the back; it's something else.
Yeah, but it's got.
If it was the back, I'd be a lot more concerned about it.
Okay.
If it were the back, because that would tell you that there was a misdiagnosis.
Right.
I do wonder this, though, from Chris's standpoint. How many injuries did you have in your career? Games that you missed because you were hurt?
I just missed one game.
One game your whole career?
Yeah, I hurt my lower hamstring. That was it. But I still tried. I played the next week, though.
Okay. So you missed one game?
One game.
Okay. Like Derrick Henry hurt a hamstring and missed one game.
Right.
How many guys did you play with in your career where if it wasn't the back, it was the elbow? If it wasn't the elbow, it was the hip.
Yeah.
If it wasn't the hip, it was the ankle. And they just missed a boatload of games all the time.
There wasn't too many guys in that 1990 team that did that. There were a lot of guys that were hurt, but they still played.
But I'm just talking about the guys that are just made of glass and always getting hurt. Because I feel like once you're in, I think injury prone is real.
No doubt.
Like Mariota was one of those guys.
True.
Where if it wasn't this, it was that. If it wasn't that, it was this. And I don't know, from a biomechanical standpoint. But I'm looking at Farley, and I'm wondering if he's just hurt. And he's going to always be hurt.
Jarrett, in the history of his 3-year NFL career, he has been rather injury prone. If we're talking in 2 years about a guy who can't get on the field, absolutely in play. If Dylan Radens isn't starting at guard or tackle for the Titans and being fairly productive in the next year or so, totally fair to rip him. But 3 games into their rookie seasons, I'm not ready to make a summary judgment. I think it's crazy to do that.
And I agree with you. I agree with both of you guys. But the thing that kind of concerns me is if you knew that he was hurt, why would you draft him? That's the concern the concern that I'm concerned about. I mean, why would you draft a guy when you definitely need a cornerback, but you don't know if he's going to play the first 4 or 5 games? That's the only thing that I was concerned about. And I'm not saying that he's injury prone or he consistently gets hurt, but when you're drafted that high in the draft, you're expecting this guy to come in and play right away.
Okay, no, I disagree with you, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
people who are successful in life play the long game. And that's what the Titans have tried to do with Simmons. That's what they're doing with Farley. Doesn't always work, but I'm just saying that John Robinson is less concerned about the first 3 weeks of his rookie season than he is how he's going to feel about this pick 2 years from today. So, again, you might want to slow your roll because that's why they drafted him. That they knew that on the front end there might be some uncertainty, and the back so far is checked out. But the soldier's another thing. The shoulder's another thing.
You worried about Darrington Evans and his injury proneness?
Darrington Evans is starting to reach the point where he needs to get on the field this year. Otherwise, we're talking about 2 years of doing bupkis. That's a different deal. So, I am concerned because it seems like every time he steps on the field, he gets hurt.
And I agree with
that. That is a legitimate concern.
Yeah.
But as far as these guys, I'm just not that worried about it. It would be nice, for J-Rob to draft guys that they can plug in and play, and that just doesn't seem to happen here. Listen, for years, that sort of defined the Colts as opposed to the Titans. Titans would always draft projects. Colts would always draft guys who could play immediately. And the Colts invariably had more success.
But I think, and I agree with you to an extent, but the reason why we're really not talking about Farley as much is because the way Fulton is playing.
True. If the corners stunk as bad as they did last year, we'd be banging the drum on Farley.
Oh, my gosh.
We
would be pulling out my hair. I don't have a lot of hair right now, but I would be pulling it out because we expected him to come in and play. But then the reason why it's glossed over is because Fulton is doing a better job, and it's glossed over.
Out for the Jets today, running back LaMichael Pirine, wide receiver Jeff Smith, safety Marcus May, who's a pretty good player, cornerback Jason Pinnock, defensive lineman Tim Ward, wide receiver Elijah Moore. Out today for the Jets.
Their receiving core is depleted.
Oh, yeah, Jamison Crowder.
Crowder's hurt.
Is he coming back?
And more because of concussion. He's in concussion protocol. They're thin at that position too.
True.
So, misery sort of loves company in this one.
So for Jamison Crowder will make his debut. I'm not sure what that means or matters or whatever. But everybody is knocking the Jets. Mike Vrabel's key to the game is don't underestimate this New York Jets team.
That this will be one of the best, if not the best, defensive fronts that we'll play this year. Williams, Fatukasi, Rankins, Franklin Myers, Shepard, and I roll them one after another. If you don't block Mosley, he's guaranteed to make the tackle. Young secondary. I think their backs are good and active, when they've handed it to them and been able to go to the run. Obviously Corey, they've got, a couple tight ends and then the, rookie quarterback who's ultra talented. So we'll have to be, sharp. We're going to have to clear our minds and, move on to the next opponent.
Quentin Williams, just another great, lineman out of Alabama, who, was brought in amidst a lot of fanfare. But that's a guy you want to talk about potential up front and what a beast he was in college. Good grief! Remember Quentin Williams at Bama.
Okay.
Well, I was just going to say, Vrabel said that. It sounded a lot like coach talk.
That's
sometimes when
coach talk
Vrabel
101.
says stuff like that,
that's what
this
it
is
means.
why they lose games like this is because nobody actually thinks that he means those things.
But as a coach, you have to say those things because you have to respect your opponent. Because if you hear your coach like, "Oh, we're gonna go in here and beat them," and you go in there nonchalant, you're gonna look up and you're gonna be down 30-0. So that is coach talk.
It's like interviewing Chris during his playing days.
All coach talk?
Oh God, there's no I in team. Really?
I love you, Mark.
Chris told me he and Paul Kaharski got into it one time. What happened?
It takes a lot for me to get mad. Oh my God! This when we were at Vanderbilt, and he just said some things that just wasn't cool.
Like he wrote them in the paper, or he said them to you?
This was after I signed my contract, and he said something in the paper. And I can understand if you attack my technique or attack what I do, but when you attack me personally, now we got a problem. And I was about to put these styles on. It takes me a lot to get mad, but the Rocky music came on, and I was about to just and get after it.
I remember telling PK, I go, what's your next trick? Get into a fight with Gandhi? Yeah, the thing about Chris Sanders, listen, and I mean this 1,000%. Every time you walked to Chris's locker, he was a sweetheart.
Thank you, man.
Ask about your family, ask how you're doing, sort of gig you about your clothes, but but he'd give you like this, sort of milquetoast, tear down. But I mean, as far as covering him, I mean, he never had a bad day.
But I want to
get in a fight with Gandhi.
The only two people who could pick a fight with Chris Sanders were Perry Phoenix. Who could pick a fight with Gandhi?
Oh my goodness!
And Paul, and I love Paul.
I love Paul too, but
Paul is my brother. But
I was gonna get him.
He is not afraid to go there and push the irritation
No,
button.
All right, we got to check in with TD. He's hanging out in New York. We'll get live from MetLife Stadium. Teron Davenport will join us next. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Ron Davenport joins us on the pregame show brought to you by Freedom Tire Guys, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at freedomtireguys.com. TD is at MetLife Stadium, where he is not picking a fight with Gandhi, and he joins us now on the pregame show. So, TD, last week you texted Chris Sanders and said there just wasn't a lot of energy inside the stadium before the Titans took on the Colts. At times in the game Sunday, it looked like they didn't play with a lot of injury. We're always kind of worried about the Titans playing a sleepy opponent like the Jets and things that could happen. How does it feel so far on the field at MetLife Stadium?
I mean, it's not lively, I'll say that. But, hey, I mean, we haven't seen everybody come out and warm up. It's still early. Things that continue to matriculate. But I think a lot of that has to do with, like, the music that they're playing, too. You know, music that gets you going. And so far, whoever the DJ here is at MetLife, yeah, he needs to be upgraded.
Didi, we talked about A.J. Brown, Julio Jones out this week for the Titans. Obviously, no surprise. Mike Vrabel announced it on Friday. Mekhi Sargent inactive today, which means that Jeremy McNichols and Derrick Henry are probably going to get all of the carries. But surprising, two active fullbacks, Torrey Carter and Kari Blasingame. What do we read into that for what the Titans may do offensively today?
Well, I think it's special teams. You know, Carter, he had a couple of nice special teams plays. And I think Blasingame, he is a guy that you can still have carry the football. I mean, he did that at times during camp. He did it during the preseason. So he's a versatile piece, and I think that will just kind of make a guy like a Mekhi Sargent a little bit more disposable, so to speak. And that's just how it fell out. You know, this time they ended up having two fullbacks active.
Teron, by the way, speaking to Teron Davenport, Titans beat writer for ESPN. As far as the way the Titans are going to attack the Jets defense, you know, what do you are we going to see a heavy diet early at Derrick Henry, or I thought that with their undersized linebackers, you get them in play action, Teron, and I think the Titans could have a fairly big day offensively.
Yeah, I think you do want to get them in play action. I think you want to attack the outside. Excuse me. You want to do, like, more stretch and that type of stuff. And keep in mind, you know, C.J. Mosley is a very good lateral guy. He lost some weight, so his, you know, side-to-side mobility is a little bit better. But I think when you run stretch and zone, outside zone, and those type of things, that cutback lane, I think that will be there. And running that outside zone, it just helps you be able to, you know, you don't have to move a big guy like Quentin Williams. You're just blocking a spot, and you just turn him a little bit, and you leave that cutback lane. So I would expect to see Derrick Henry have a lot of opportunities that way. Another thing that you do against a defense like this, because they really don't have any legit, true, top-notch pass rushers, so they're going to attack a lot. That screen game will definitely come into play as well.
Okay, at the end of the day, when the dust settles, tell me which receiver you think will have the most yardage on the Titans.
You know, I'm going with Josh Reynolds. I think they're going to take some vertical shots with him. Yeah, and I'm just kind of basing this off of just some of the conversations that we were able to have with him. He's really, like, chomping at the bit. Like, he's ready to go. He looked good coming out here and warming up. So I'm not going to say receptions, but yards. I expect to see a big play from Josh Reynolds. You talk about play action. You know, you can hit that play action, let him run that post. And remember, Marcus May is out, so they're down to, you know, their safeties are not that good. Their corners, suspect, Young, Byron Eccles, and I forget the young fella out of Virginia. But you could attack there. So Bryce Hall.
Yeah.
You know, TD, just kind of looking at Zach Wilson, he's kind of been struggling as a rookie. He has 2 TDs and seven interceptions. Just looking at our secondary, I know Christian Fulton's probably going to be on Corey Davis. But do you think Bayer can have a big day by getting about 2 or 3 interceptions? Because
3.
I say between 2 or 3. Because okay, let's go back to 2. That's too big. But with Zach Wilson struggling, you know, throwing the ball, you think Bayer can get a couple of interceptions?
Yeah, I think it's very possible, and that's actually why I drew it up in Whiteboard Wednesday. And you know how it is when you have a young quarterback. You get him to see one thing pre-snap and you show him something else later. And, you know, after the snap, and you just want to kind of, like, bait him into doing what a young quarterback like Zach Wilson will do when you have a Corey Davis, right? He's going to lock in on a guy like that before the play. You show him one look, you blitz a little bit, and you get him to make that quick throw, that hot throw. And you could kind of, like if you go to cover 2, you could shift it to 3, right, and have Byard just kind of drop down. When I drew up, I had Byard just drop down into being a robber, and that gives you an opportunity to just swoop in and get the interception. But I think, the bottom line is I expect to see Zach Wilson lock in on Corey Davis a lot, and that should give opportunities for guys to get interceptions, especially with the pass rush up front.
Yeah, you get kind of choked up, didn't you?
When I talk about going hot, and, you know what I mean, interceptions, I get choked up because I don't want to see that. As a receiver, we want the reception.
Absolutely. But just going back to Corey Davis, do you think that they will just maybe stay in zone or maybe double, Corey Davis because they have a lack of playmakers, on the Jets wide receiver side?
I wouldn't be surprised to see him double, but excuse me, I fully expect them to go into zone. A lot of just dropping back and just pressuring out of that zone and just being able to, because remember, when you're in zone, that gives you more opportunities to get eyes on the football, right? So you can get those turnovers, and that's something that they really stress, getting turnovers. I mean, they're 0.3 per game turnovers. This is dead last in the league, so they want to get that better, and one of the ways you do that is zone as opposed to man, where your eyes aren't as much on the ball, so it doesn't give you as many opportunities to pick it off.
Teron Davenport is with us, again presented by Freedom Tire Guys, online, freedomtireguys.com. TD, Ola Adeniyi has been a real big surprise, and the Titans have absolutely needed him. The front four, and I assume that Adeniyi will slide in there and start opposite Harold Landry. Landry, Adeniyi, Simmons, and Autry against this Jets offensive line with this Jets quarterback. What kind of advantage do you see there for the Titans?
Yeah, I definitely think there's an advantage. And when you look at Adeniyi coming off the edge, I think there's a good advantage going against a taller guy like Morgan Moses because he's able to bend so well coming off that edge. And it makes it tougher for taller tackles to be able to block. So I'd expect to see a big day out of Ola Adeniyi. And, when you're able to come off the edge like with that speed and make the tackle bend, you could always loop back inside, or use your speed to power. So Adeniyi, I wouldn't be surprised 1.5, 2 sacks. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets that. You got Sharif Finch. He's from here in Jersey, so he's coming home, getting a chance to play in front of the home crowd and also against his former team. He was once a Jet, so it's a good opportunity for him being active.
TD, last one for you. I always ask you about the punters and the kickers. Johnny Townsend.
Let's go, baby.
How does he look out there punting in pregame, and how does Randy Bullock look kicking in pregame?
Well, he's been booming them, but I tell you what, this weather, 70 degrees, not a single flag blowing from the wind. You better, as a professional punter, be able to boom a couple of those. He just shanked one, so I guess I jinxed him. But, hey, man, that's how it works. I saw Bullock kick a couple, so, they should be ready to go. But, again, these are ideal conditions with no pass rush, so it better look good.
TD is brought to you by FreedomTireGuys.com, Nashville's premier mobile tire company, online at FreedomTireGuys.com. TD, we appreciate you, and we will talk to you next week.
Appreciate you, big dog.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you. Maybe we need to get an allergy, like Allegra or something, sponsored for me, man. I'm out here struggling, man. I apologize about the call.
TD, as always, hanging out with us. Now, I do want to say this about the changing the punter thing that I asked TD about when he said, hey, Johnny Townsend just shanked one. Floyd told me last year when the Titans changed the punter in the Colts game on a Thursday night and they went to Trevor Daniel and he shanked one and got one blocked, Floyd said that when you change the punter, the likelihood of a mistake is astronomical compared to when you just have your standard punter in there. And I'm a little worried about that if the Jets are going to get in the game, it's going to be because of something like this. Floyd actually told me this story when he was special teams coach of the Lions. The assistant GM came to him and said, we got to change the punter. And he said, if you change the punter, we're going to get one blocked. He said, nah, this punter's good. He'll come in here and he'll 3 punts got blocked.
Oh.
They were in a staff meeting, and the assistant general manager goes, well, if we didn't have those punts get blocked, then we would have had a shot at winning the game, whatever. And apparently when Floyd came to, he had 2 coaches pulling him back as he was trying to go across the table towards the assistant general manager.
Floyd?
That'll do it.
Whoa. Floyd did that?
Hey, in 5 years of working with Floyd, I never saw his eyes change colors, but his kids told me that when he was coaching, you got him in the wrong, that those eyes had changed colors, and apparently that was not a good thing. Coming up next, we'll make our picks to click. That's right, here on the pregame show. Who needs to click for a Titans victory? Plus, what about Todd Downing and the job he's doing as offensive coordinator? Because it doesn't sound like he's getting a lot of love. Plus, we'll take a look at the sports books, and we'll make our game day picks. We'll do that coming up next, right here, live from the Corner Pub in Brentwood. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Mark Howard's with us, too, and our picks to click are brought to you by Parman Tractor and Equipment, which actually our friends at Parman Tractor and Equipment had me out there this week. I was glad to go. They let me get up in a tractor, and I was taking those backhoes around the parking lot and everything, and I was tempted, Mark. I was tempted to hit that little joystick forward right into the ground and all of a sudden just see what happens. But,
go for it next time.
I like having them on as the presenting sponsor of Picks to Click. Who's got a click today for the Titans to get a victory at the Jets? Chris Sanders, we start with you for your wildly predictable Picks to Click. Is it Henry or Tannehill today that you're going with to click on?
That'd be a negative. A.J. Brown, Julio Jones, those guys are out. I'm going with Josh Reynolds. I know you guys are looking at it because I know you guys are going to pick, but I'm going with Josh Reynolds. The reason why I'm going with him.
Stealing Teron
I'm
Davenport's
stealing it.
intel.
No, I had it written. No, I stole it. But, yeah, I just think that he needs to have a big day. And the reason why I'm saying because you have your big-time receivers out, and he's probably their biggest play guy. I know Chester Rogers been playing well, and Westbrook played well last week, but they definitely need Reynolds to step up and make some big plays for the Titans.
What do we make of this, Mark, that Chris Sanders did not want Josh Reynolds to make the team out of camp? All year was talking about so far through the first 3 weeks about how he doesn't believe much in Reynolds. Last week when we said that Reynolds was inactive, Chris gave us the I told you so speech, and here he is making his pick to click Josh Reynolds.
Well, he's an Ohio State guy, so he's a front runner.
I love the how can I count the ways.
Who is your defensive pick to click?
Oh, I am going to go with Christian Fulton. And the reason I'm going with him, he's been playing at the top level. I think they're going to put him on Corey Davis and really stop him from even making a couple of plays. So, I think that with him playing at the top notch, I think he's going to get a couple of interceptions because Zach Wilson tends to turn the ball over.
How many interceptions are the Titans going to have? They have 1 interception on the season, and you said already to TD, you asked him if Byard could have 3 today, and you just said you think Fulton's going to have a couple. That's 5 interceptions in one game.
No, I think he's going to at least cough up 3. I think somebody.
You think he's going to throw 3 interceptions today?
I mean, he's already got 7 in 3 games. I mean, if you're throwing interceptions in 3 games, you basically don't have any confidence. And I think he's going to try to force it into Davis. And if you try to force it into Davis, Christian Fulton or Byard is going to definitely try to come up with an interception.
Mark Howard, your picks to click.
Offensively, I'm going to take the law firm of Saffold and Lewan. I think they're going to have a good day, not only pass blocking, but opening up gaping holes for Derrick Henry and ensure a Titans victory.
I look at this and I think, okay, right now, and I hate Pro Football Focus. I hate everything about Pro Football
Why?
Focus. Because I think their information is incredibly flawed, and I think they sell it off as if it's fact. It's like, here's who graded the highest in a Titans game, and then people are like, hey, look, so-and-so graded the highest. And it's like, how can you grade a tape when you don't know what the play call is?
Well, you know who helped them with that? The late, great Gunther Cunningham.
Yeah, but even then, like, Gunther, if you don't know the play, I don't know how you can grade this offensive lineman did a good job on this play. You don't know what the protection was.
Absolutely.
It's a fair.
And they had, like, the grades done within, like, an hour after the game. If Floyd told me that when he would grade a tape, he'd grade every player on every play. He'd get in the office at, like, 3 a.m., and he'd be done by, like, 10 p.m. grading a tape. And so
They're guessing.
For whatever that is worth, Pro Football Focus has David Quessenberry ranked as the best offensive player right now on the Tennessee Titans.
How?
Do you want to run the ball left with Lewan and Saffold, or would you look to run it with Quessenberry, who is playing well, regardless of what the ProFootballFocus.com whatever grade is?
Your criticism of PFF is fair, but like anything else, it's just one tool. Defensively, I'm going, believe it or not, with Jeffrey Simmons. I think he's been a major facilitator. I think he's just one of those guys that the Titans have a big day defensively. I don't know if it's going to show statistically, but I think if he can blow them up schematically, he's going to help the other 10 guys he's on the field with.
I think Simmons is either making it easier for everybody else or is on the verge of blowing up, and I don't know which one it is. Offensively, I'm going to go with Derrick Henry.
Are you kidding me?
Wow, what a reach.
Ooh.
Here's why I'm going with Derrick Henry, other than the obvious. Do you know that in the last 25 games, Derrick Henry has been the best running back in the history of the NFL? Not stopping today. And I think the Jets, they're going to try to load the box, and I think they're going to try, and I think early they probably will slow Derrick Henry down a little bit. But I think ultimately the way the Titans want to play this game is to not turn the football over, not make mistakes, and without A.J. Brown and Julio Jones, I don't think they want to experiment with, can we win throwing the ball to Nick Westbrook-Akina? So I think they're going to give Derrick Henry the ball. I think they're going to give it to him 28 times today. He has no backup running back in there. McNichols is not a guy they want to give carries to. So I think you're going to see Derrick Henry, if the plan works, I think you're going to see Derrick Henry carry the ball about 28 times a day. I think the Titans hope that they get a big enough lead that they can run McNichols, or run Blasing game, but I think that they probably are going to end up giving the ball to Derrick Henry a lot. Which, by the way, is pretty crazy to think about the fact that of all the running backs, these last 25 games, Derrick Henry has been better than any 25-game stretch for Walter Payton or O.J. Simpson or Jim Brown or Emmitt Smith or Terrell Davis or LaDainian Tomlinson. That's how dominant he's been. On the defensive side of the ball, I'm going with David Long Jr. I need some more David Long Jr., and I don't know how much he's going to play because I think Jayon Brown is now 100% back from the hamstring injury. But in passing situations, I think Long Jr. should be out there and Rashawn Evans shouldn't be. Because I think Long Jr. is just a better player. And I love, he's athletic, but he gets his nose dirty, and he got to the quarterback a couple of times last week against Indianapolis. I really am starting to like David Long Jr.'s game. So I'm going to go with him, again, not knowing how much he is going to play today.
I thought I'd spontaneously combust by saying this, but I agree with Jared.
I do.
I do.
I do 100%.
Rashawn Evans, to me, is destined to be another semi-disappointment who's not going to get, well, he already hasn't gotten his fifth-year option picked up, but David Long, sort of a mid-round success for the Titans. It's turned out to be, albeit a little undersized, a tackling machine. I just love the way that he plays, kind of an overachiever. So Jared, I would agree with you on all counts there.
I just think that David Long has better instincts. And just watching him play, he understands what's going on in the backfield. He understands what the offensive line is doing. I think Evans just has a splash. It's a splash here and there, a splash here and there, but there's no consistency. You look at David Long, the games that he's playing, he's been consistent, and he's always around the football. So I hate to say this, but I agree with you, big guy.
Yeah, I mean, Evans physically is more gifted.
Absolutely.
There's no question.
Here's the thing I can't understand with Evans, though, is when they drafted him, it was like, hey, he is bigger than the normal linebacker, and he is more athletic and faster than the normal middle linebacker, and yet you don't ever see him out in coverage.
Because he's out of position.
And you don't ever see him go rush the passer. And so he makes some tackles, but he's not like a great tackler. So I just don't, I'm with you. He's way more physically gifted than Long Jr., but he just doesn't seem to make any plays.
And Rashawn Evans, I remember, we talk about Floyd a lot. And I remember one of the things I used to tell Floyd sometimes, that occasionally 2 + 2 = 5. And that's the case with Evans. You look at all his ingredients, and it should spit out a perennial all-pro linebacker, and it doesn't. And he isn't. He's not a very instinctual player, for starters. And to me, at least for me personally, he is one of their biggest disappointments in the last 4 or 5 years. I thought he would be a big-time player, and that just hasn't materialized. I thought a couple of years ago, remember that series at the goal line against the Chargers? Well, against the Patriots, plus of the Chargers, when he shut them down, 2 plays in a row. I'm thinking he's finally coming into his own. He's finally going to be the guy we all thought. Wrong.
But it's just we talked about it a little earlier. It's just those splashes of plays that he makes,
Yeah.
and it just looked like sometimes he's always out of position. And when you're playing linebacker and you're out of position, and you don't see the play develop, you're always going to second guess and have that hesitation step. And if you have the hesitation step in the league, you're going to find yourself getting beat.
And let's not forget about David Long Jr. He was the Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year his last year at Oklahoma. I mean, he is to the point. The reason he lasted until the 6th round was West Virginia. Thank you. The reason he lasted to the 6th round was because he was undersized. But you guys brought up the points about his instincts. And I think we saw that when Jayon Brown got hurt in the playoff run in 2019, and they had to stick David Long Jr. in there because, Wesley Woodyard was an old peepop at that point. He couldn't run around. And I thought Long Jr. was fantastic. So I'd like to see more of Long Jr. I think we'll see a lot of him today against the Jets.
And the Titans have sort of benefited that, they drafted a guy in the 6th round who was undersized, and undersized linebackers are kind of in vogue now. And so Long is almost perfect for that role. But, on top of it, he also happens to be, a pretty good football player.
Coming up next, we'll take a look at the sports books, see what they have to say about today's game. How are they feeling as we get right up to kickoff? And we'll make our final game day predictions. That's next. We are live at the Corner Pub in Brentwood. Mark Howard, Chris Sanders, Jared Stillman. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game. Time to take a look at the odds on today's game. The latest odds are brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook and my official sportsbook app. The Tennessee Titans against the New York Jets are favored, but the line is dropping 5.5, Mark Howard. It was 6 this morning, 5.5. So the money on the Sharps is going towards the Jets. What do you make of that?
Well, 5.5 to me.
Stop it.
Is a go number for the underdog. And, you know, I think absolutely, I think this could be another, day where the Titans win, but the Jets cover.
I just think the Tennessee Titans are going to win. I just don't see.
Have you ever made a sports bet in your life?
I do silly dog under picks.
No, but like an actual bet where it's like.
No, I don't think I'd have.
So you think? So I mean, I think the Titans are going to win too. And excuse me, I picked the Jets. I think the Jets are going to win.
Are you kidding me?
But we'll get to that in a second. But I am getting a little nervous that with all the inactives for the Titans, that the line has shifted more towards the Jets.
If the Jets had something on offense, I know they have Corey Davis. If those first 3 games that their offense was playing pretty good, I would say yes. But they have an inept offense. They have one receiver that have no running game. You got Zach Wilson. that's throwing interceptions, only 2 TDs in the last 3 games. So it's just a team that just doesn't scare me.
Do you want to know how much the sports books think that the offensive skill players for the Jets suck? Anytime touchdown score, Derrick Henry is minus 210 to score a touchdown, which means that they're saying Derrick is more likely than not to score a touchdown this week. Do you know who the second leading odds for an anytime touchdown scorer are in this game before they name a single Jets skill position player?
Is it you mean on the Jets side or the Titans side?
The whole game, but it's definitely the Titans side because it's before any Jets player.
I'll say Ryan Tannehill.
Chris?
Josh Reynolds.
Nick Westbrook-Akina
I was close.
has the second highest odds at plus 185. Michael Carter for the Jets, the running back, plus 195. Ty Johnson, plus 210. Corey Davis, plus 230. The odds on the sports book say it's more likely that Nick Westbrook-Akina catches a touchdown than it is that Corey Davis catch a touchdown.
Wow.
Rushing props. I always find this to be interesting simply because it's Derrick Henry. But I always wonder, what are the – oh, by the way, you can also take Michael Pruitt, for example, for plus 1,200 if that was something that you want to do. Player rushing yards, going back to how much people think the Jets stink. Ty Johnson over under 16.5. Michael Carter over under 41.5. Derrick Henry over under 120.5.
This game has under written all over it.
Would you take the over or the under Derrick Henry 120.5 in terms of rushing yards?
Under.
You don't think he's going to get it?
He had 113 last week, and nobody was talking about the kind of game that he played. I thought he played a great game last week.
I say over.
That's a big total, man.
Yeah.
It also –
That means you're basically betting on Derrick Henry to get 150 rushing yards.
I really do. I think he's going to get it. I just think he's that type of dude, man. He is that type of dude. So, I love the
leading receiver yards over under. Corey Davis 54.5 over or under.
I say under.
I'll say over.
I mean, surely they're gonna have to throw the ball, and they don't have anybody else to throw the ball to.
I think we're gonna lock him up though.
Titans leading receiver.
He has to lock himself up.
Titans leading receiver on the over under. Nick Westbrook-Akina at 36.5. Joe Rexrode must be
receiver.
According to the FanDuel Sportsbook guy, Joe Rexrode must be the one who is pulling the numbers for the FanDuel Sportsbook app to have Nick Westbrook-Akina as the projected leading receiver
with 36 yards
as the second over under as the second highest odds to score a touchdown in this game.
I say under.
But I'm surprised Chester Rogers isn't. I mean, that's the guy I think I would probably say that I would expect the Titans and Tannehill to throw the ball to the most today.
But I agree with you. But the thing about it is they're probably going to go man-to-man coverage. They're probably going to win in the perimeter, not more in the slot.
Meanwhile, over-under point total for the Jets, 19.5. For the Titans, 24.5. Think the Titans score more than 25 points, Mark?
I say the Titans go under.
I say
and the Jets go under. I think it's going to be like a 17-14, 19-17 type of game.
Over under 44.5 for the game.
Oh, gosh.
I would go under. Well, what do I know?
Chris, you think the Titans are going to light it up on the scoreboard today?
I think they will. I think they're going to go score 35 or more.
All right, with that, it's time now to make our game day picks. Again, the latest odds on today's game are brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook, America's #1 sportsbook. Our final picks are brought to you every week by Social Furniture, located at 5412 Charlotte Avenue in Nashville. Shop local, shop social. Who wins today, final score, and why? We start with our wide receiver, Chris Sanders.
All right, no Julio Jones, no A.J. Brown, but you still have Henry. You still got that big guy. I would say Titans 35, the Jets 10. I just feel that everybody's talking about it being a trap game and Jets are terrible, and they're absolutely right. The Jets have absolutely no offense. They have a good defense that'll keep them in the game for a little bit, but once Henry gets going and those guys in the perimeter make plays, I think it's going to be 35-10.
The Titans, by the way, have not blown anybody out nor played an extended period of good football this year, but Chris is going to go with the blowout today. Mark?
Yes, ma'am.
I don't think there's going to be a blowout. I'm going to say Titans 19, Jets 17.
Oh.
I told Corey Curtis earlier this week. I told Corey Curtis, I said, if they win 19-16, if it's one of those ugly games and they win 19-16, go ahead and get the ambulance, put it in the driveway, and have the paramedics sit there and do nothing like at a high school basketball game just in case, because I may stroke out tomorrow if the Titans don't blow the Jets out. I am taking the Jets to win today.
Gosh.
I said it on the show Friday, and I am saying it today. And the only reason I am picking the Jets, and we hope you're okay, Mark.
Yeah,
the
sorry.
only reason I am picking the Jets today is because far too many times have I seen the Titans go into a game like this where everything points to a victory and somehow they fumble the football and they throw interceptions and they get a kick blocked. And maybe if they get a kick block and they lose to the Jets, that will finally be the nail in the coffin that I've been begging for Craig Aukerman, the special teams coach, who should have been fired 3 years ago.
Gosh.
But today I'm picking the Jets. I think the Jets win 18-16 in a weird, just grimy, just crappy,
Well, they get a
just
rouge?
Oh my
poor
gosh.
coached game. 18-16
Wow.
Jets. I think the Jets win today.
Wow.
You need to go to timeout right now.
That's going to do it for us. We are out of here today. We will be back next week, same time, different place, as we will be hanging out at the Corner Pub in Bellevue from 9:30 to 11:30 for Mark Howard, for Chris Sanders. That's going to do it for us. And, of course, back tomorrow at 2 o'clock with a Reaction Monday on a Titan Monday. It's Jared, Mark, and Chris. It's the pregame show on ESPN 102.5 The Game.